Hello, Glasgow.
What a startlingly good video to start off with.
Thank you. There's a really funny story behind it too. My ex-wife's boyfriend made it.
Really?
Yeah, it turns out she wound up falling in love with the biggest Bob Layton fan in the world. And he works in video production. I've been working in film with the film commissions in Florida, and I did a big lecture at Ringling College last week, which is a large film school there. And so Jason put this together for the film students. That's why there's more an emphasis on the Hollywood stuff than on the comic book stuff.
That's a crazy story.
No, but I'm still best friends with my ex-wife, and then she winds up with the guy who's the biggest Bob Layton fan in the world. She thinks it's a curse or something, but Jason's awesome. He's like, so I kind of pass him off as my fake brother-in-law. That's the only way I can really describe him, but he did a great job. He was very flattering.
And for you, I mean, you mentioned now you're kind of focusing on the more Hollywood side of things, but how did you kind of get into comics? What interested you in becoming an artist?
Well, I learned how to read from comics before I ever started school. I forced my sister when I was like 4 years old to because I could tell what was happening from the sequential art. And I became curious as to what they were saying. So my sister sat down with me very patiently and taught me how to read. And as a result, I wound up skipping a grade in school. Are we turning the lights down a little bit? Because that was really bright. Or am I having a tumor?
The lights are going down.
And so that kind of put the hook in me from a very early age, that the power of that medium. And so I was going to be a storyteller. That was my goal in life. And I didn't want to be a fireman or a policeman or anything like that. I wanted to be, a storyteller. I recognized the power of the medium, and became totally hooked in it. So all my energies were devoted to that at that point.
And going from that child that learned to read comics to being one of the most well-known comic book artists and creators of some of the most amazing characters, when you look back, do you think, wow, what a journey?
There are moments, especially like in the case of Ant-Man, of Scott Lang, where, that was only like a 2-issue Marvel premiere, like tryout story, okay? Yeah. But young Edgar Wright bought it and apparently changed his life. And so, he grew up with the idea, I'm going to make an Ant-Man movie one day. So something like that, you just can't ever predict. It's like, and it's astonishing to me, just this little throwaway project that we did 40 years ago is now an international phenomenon. Yeah, you can't ever predict that, It's crazy.
And you mentioned, of course, the Ant-Man movie there, and what's that like then as a throwaway project now? And it's crazy to see it, but did you have any input into the film?
Oh, no. At that particular time, I was not on what I would call glowing terms with Marvel. We were having a bit of litigation, so I wound up not being invited. We did settle, and I did wind up going to the premiere, because you see me in my Ant-Man tuxedo, as you know, because I had a tuxedo made especially for the event. That was Ant-Man colors. We had an on-again, off-again thing, but that we settled it and everything was fine, and now all's right with the world. But I wasn't around for the Ant-Man, which I kind of regret, and Edgar regretted as well. But he was always good about staying in contact with me. We messaged each other from time to time. So even though I wasn't allowed on the set, this stuff happens. It's business, right?
But they're making a sequel. Going on good terms with Marvel.
Yeah, right. And I love Marvel. I love the movie premieres. They throw a great party. I got to tell you, Civil War was awesome. That was and the after party was fantastic. That was Marvel does throw a good party.
And for you, because you work a lot in Hollywood now, and I believe you're moving on to doing your own projects now, not just working.
Well, I actually don't work in Hollywood. I've been out there for the last 10 years, because I went out to work on the Iron Man movies, and what I discovered was everybody in Hollywood is a geek. That's why we kind of won the culture wars, and you see so much product out there, because they're all culling the things they grew up with. And for that generation of producers, it's Marvel Comics, you know, and so or DC Comics. So for the last year, I stayed out there, and I worked with Edward James Olmos, as you saw, and a lot of other people that you saw up there on the screen, and because I found out that everybody knew who I was because they all grew up reading Marvel Comics, so I didn't need the normal introductions that most writers or creators would have to do because, like I said, that was already done for me. So I just was being, opportunist, wouldn't you? Right? You know? But recently, I moved from Hollywood back to Florida, where I was from before I went out there. And now what I'm doing, because I hooked up with investors, and they want me to create a larger film presence for the state of Florida, because Florida has almost none. They have film commissioners or whatever, but many of them, 4 of them, but they really haven't been able to generate a lot of film or television presence in the state of Florida. So they asked me to come there, and with their investment help, I'm going to create a large film imprint in the state of Florida. So it includes making my own movies and characters that I create or whatever for the screen. So that's what my new job is now. Every 2 days a week, I'm downtown at the Bank of America building in my own little office now, inside the Tampa Film Commissioner, and I'm working with people to basically set this whole thing up.
That's pretty cool, though, to go from that, to go back to the image of a little boy learning to read and now defining an entire film presence for the state of Florida.
Yeah, I know. It's like it's daunting, but it's exciting at the same time. I have to deal with politicians and film commissioners and a whole bunch of different things, but I really think it's something that we can do. And like I said, the people behind me have a very strong footprint there. And I think this is a chance for, if you love my comics, there's a chance for me to actually create stuff for the screen that I'm going to, since I was in Hollywood, I have all this talent pool I can draw from and bring them to Florida to help me make products. So, and we can talk about that in the Q&A or whatever, but yeah, to me it's a challenge, and I always looked for a challenge, in my career, wherever it was. I always, what was the next step that I can do? What's the next step that I can advance myself, my own career, and do something that I think is good for everyone. And again, since television and film has become sort of on demand, we don't sit in front of the TV anymore, we download things, right? We go to Hulu, we go to Netflix and whatever. It's not that sort of destination you have to be in front of the TV at 8 o'clock kind of thing anymore. And that opens up the world to a lot of new possibilities, and I want to explore that.
Because, as rightly said, it opens the door not just to on the go, but when you're trying to get a film project launched, you've now got more players out there. You've got your Netflix, you've got Amazon, and they're all commissioning series. Whereas you've got 10 years or so, and it was only the big networks that were doing it.
Exactly. And so but also I'm taking advantage of the international market. The investors behind me are international. And so whatever I produce is going to be global, not just Florida. But the idea was to be able to produce in Florida, which has a lot of tax advantages for one thing, and an incredible talent pool. Ringling College, where I spoke at last weekend, is one of the most prestigious film schools in the country. It's an amazing place. And they lose over 90% of their graduates to Hollywood, to California, either Silicon Valley or to Hollywood itself. And because there's no incentive for them to stay home and do something creative. So I want, part of my mandate is to keep those people there and utilize those young, hungry talents to help me to basically realize what the visions I have for various film projects. My current slate right now has over 35 projects on it, so it's not like I'm going to be out of ideas anytime soon.
That's incredible.
Well, as I said, I spent so much time in Hollywood generating stuff, and not everything was obviously successful.
Yeah.
Because, but now I have a chance where I pretty much can pick and choose what I want to do, and it will be in the vein of what I find interesting, fascinating. A lot of it will be just really stupid shit too, okay? Because I like silly movies, so.
Well, we're going to throw the questions out to the audience now, so if you would like to ask Bob a question, put your hand up and I'll bring the mic to you. So we'll start off with this lady in the front.
Hello.
Good, I can see you all now, that's wonderful.
What about television shows, for example, Dexter, that are set in Florida but not filmed there? Will you be trying to twist somebody's arm to get them to do it properly?
Well, that's a good question. But I won't have to twist their arm because the shows that I produce will be by me. It'll be done with my production company and it will be done there in state. So, yeah, I mean, that's the problem. Other than Miami, where when you want to set a show like Burn Notice or something, you really have to shoot Miami because there's no place else in the world that's pink in turquoise, right? I mean, the entire city is pink and turquoise. So it's hard to fake Miami. But if you're doing Miami Vice or you're doing Burn Notice or something like that. But in the case of what I'm going to do, a lot of what I'm going to do is will be set there. And if not, I will basically find regions of the state where I can shoot that can double as, a major city or whatever. My first project's a very LA-centric thing, but we're scouting locations now that can double for like Sunset Boulevard or a UCLA campus, that sort of thing like that. So I can keep those productions there. And I do have a slate of television projects as well, and they will be Florida-based. That's the whole point. It's like, hopefully if we're successful, because you look at places like Atlanta or New Orleans right now, and they have a large film imprint there, a large television imprint, because they've created tax incentives and they have the support of the local governments, because each film commissioner is basically allocating funds. And in the case of Florida, they've been slashing the budgets on the arts. And in fact, when I was at Ringling, we had one of the state legislators there, and I actually dragged him up on stage to question him at one point in terms of why they're not doing more for the arts. And so he invited me to actually come and speak to the Florida state legislature at some point. And I'm going to tear that up. I'm going to totally disrupt that entire body, trust me. But because more needs to be done for the arts there in order to keep the talent that we generate in the state. So, yes, they will be Florida-centric, to some degree.
I have a question in the middle.
My friend.
Where you at? Oh, there you are. Okay.
My friend and I are trying to write our own graphic novel. What do you think it takes to reproduce something great in the comic book medium?
Well, who starts out to do anything great? You people have always decided what was great or not. I mean, Demon in a Bottle resonated because you decided that. I didn't. It was just another issue of Iron Man. I think if you set out, I'm going to do something great. I mean, if I knew what the next Spider-Man was, don't you think I'd just sit down and do it? No, that's not why you do something, because you want everything you do to be the best you can possibly do. But how do you define making it great? It's just the people that inspired me. The one comic I read as a kid that made me want to learn how to read was just another. I know this for a fact because I went to work as the assistant of the guy who actually did that comic. And to him, it was just another job. He had no idea that he was inspiring young Bob Layton to become, a cartoonist, or a filmmaker or anything like that. To him, it was just another issue, just another paycheck. He did the best job he could, and he went on. But it's good to aspire to do great things, but you can't decide to make it great. It either is or it isn't, and your audience always decides that. Does that make sense?
I have a question sort of up here.
Hey, how you doing back there?
If you could choose any Marvel show that's not on TV right now to make in a TV show, what one would you make?
Oh my. I don't know. That's hard to say because they're pretty much they're down to making movies of pretty obscure characters. I mean, let's face it, Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't exactly one of Marvel's top books, right? But you have a talent like James Gunn, and you can turn even something like that into a highly entertaining film. But as far as Marvel characters I'd like to see on the screen, I don't know. I haven't spent a lot of time there, especially now, because I'm really kind of invested in my own properties and stuff, and not as much. I would always love. What I wanted to really see was for the Guardians to pick up my Hercules stuff and actually have Hercules or some of the characters from Hercules show up in Guardians of the Galaxy. I would love that, because for those who haven't read it, I did a very, very silly miniseries that went on for decades at Marvel with the character Hercules and a cast of supporting characters. That would be fun for me, to see that. But I really haven't given much thought to that otherwise. I know that's probably a satisfying answer, but I have a different set of criteria, I suppose.
You have a question here?
Is there any character that you think's been changed too much from going from comic book to film?
Well, that's interesting. Let me ask you, do you think there's?
I'm not sure.
You don't know? Here's the thing you got to understand, having worked in both mediums. It's a different audience, entirely. What you do for a mass market audience, and the best way I can describe this is Iron Man had to be done so my 85-year-old mother could understand it. Because there's not enough comic fans to justify doing a major motion picture. There's just not enough of you out there, So you have to create properties and do them for a mass audience, which means that the suspension of disbelief is a lot smaller than for you guys. You guys will accept a lot more, crazy stuff than the average person who goes to the movies. So there's always something that has to be translated so it would appeal to a mass audience, There have been a lot of really bad misses, like Green Lantern or the Fantastic Four. By the way, if you hate the Fantastic Four, you can send your hate mail to Alex Young in care of Fox Studios. He's the guy who's responsible for that. And that's probably a prime example of what you're asking. That's just like trying to make it palatable to an adult audience and going way too far where you just lose the spirit of the whole thing. Because I had no idea what they were doing with that. That was just crazy. To me, Iron Man, which the original one is, and not because I'm prejudiced, all right? It's actually I still consider it probably the best comic to film adaptation ever done, is because it stayed true to the spirit of what I created. That's my Tony Stark on the screen. That's the feel, that's the basic milieu of that character. And they stayed true to that. And part of it is because Favreau and Downey are both big Iron Man fans. They weren't just making a movie. This is something they were passionate about. And that always helps. A lot of times when you see movies and they're just like, oh my God, you're like, what are they thinking about? Batman versus Superman. It's because the people involved, are not directly connected to it. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man resonated because he was a fan. He was somebody who had read those books. He understood the opera, because comics are like opera. If you're an opera fan, even if you're not, you'll understand this. And this is the difference between Iron Man and Iron Man 3. Which, don't get me started, because there's something about comics, there's a purist thing about comics where, like opera, comics are done in Italian in costumes on a stage. And when you get a writer who's not familiar with the genre, what you wind up is in English in street clothes in a back alleyway or in a barn somewhere, where it just doesn't feel right because they don't get it, so they have to make it fit their concept. That was why Iron Man 3 was less spectacular than the others. Was Shane Black had never read a comic in his life, so that's why Tony Stark became a bumbling idiot who couldn't screw a screw in with a screwdriver. Although he was, the greatest engineer in the world in all the other movies. That's why he turned the armors into robots, and I tell the story because during my little negotiations with Marvel, I wasn't on the set for Iron Man 3. So I never saw it. I never got invited to the premiere or anything like that. And so I never went to see it, even though I'm in the credits. I never went to see the movie. And it was like maybe 4 months later or something. I'm on an airplane. I'm flying first class back to LA from Montreal. I was doing a con, and it's a red-eye flight, so everyone's asleep. And I'm looking at the video display, and there's Iron Man 3. And I'm like, should I? Should I? I was like, everybody's sleeping. So what the heck, so I hit it, because you guys had already complained to me that you didn't like it all that much. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to watch it anyway, right? So I put my earphones in, and I start watching. So about 20 minutes goes by. And suddenly I feel a hand on my shoulder. And I look up, and it's the flight attendant. And I take my earbuds out, and she's like, Mr. Layton, you're all right. I said, yeah, of course I'm all right. Why? And she goes, you're yelling. Apparently I was shouting at the screen, they're not robots, they can't move on their own. It's like, he saved his heart with a ball-peen hammer and a tin can, and now he can't build anything. I was like, apparently I was losing my mind and yelling at the screen. But again, that's the difference in translation. One has to understand the opera to really do well. Sam Raimi, interesting enough story, I put on a comic book con in my very early days when I grew up in Indiana. So I threw the very first comic book con there. And my friend Michael Uslan, the Batman producer, was writing at DC Comics at the time. And this little kid had convinced his parents to drive down from the Chicago area so he could go to this con and meet a real live comic book writer. And that kid was Sam Raimi. It's like he went on to have quite a great career of his own. But what I'm saying is the inspiration's there, the understanding of the opera is there. And I'm pontificating, we should move on.
Yes, we're running out of time, so let's start off with this question.
In terms of comic books, what would you say your favourite DC and Marvel characters, and what would your favourite characters to create for?
Well, I generally love everything I'm doing. When it's not fun, I walk away. I mean, I have one mandate, is like I have the advantage of, one, I get to work in my jammies half the time. That's awesome. As a cartoonist, except when I was at Valiant. I didn't go up to Valiant as editor-in-chief in the jammies, okay? But that's the one advantage of doing what I do, is like, oh my God, it's so much fun. And I get to meet, as you see, I get to meet really interesting people. I get to travel places and meet wonderful people. The second it stops being fun, it's time to quit. Because whenever it becomes just a job, you're not going to get the best out of me. You're not going to get the best out of anybody. It should never be just a job. This is something I'm passionate about. So I don't have a favorite character. I mean, obviously, my legacy is tied to Iron Man. It always will be, and I'm grateful for that. Most artists go through their entire life without their name being associated with a single character, and for that, I'm eternally grateful. It's been a two-edged sword in a lot of ways, because again, I don't get paid for any of the merchandising or anything like that. I don't get to share in the money, the enormous billions of dollars that character generates based on the ideas I created. But at the same time, I get the goodwill from that, which allows me to do what I'm doing in Florida now. And so, like I said, it's a two-edged sword. But to have a single favorite character, I mean, there are characters I would like to have done that I haven't. I probably never will. Like at DC, there was a character called Adam Strange at DC. And I always thought it was the silliest character. I grew up reading it, and I thought the silliest character in the world. Because, he puts on his spacesuit, he stands in front of the Macy Day Parade, and waits for a beam to take him to this planet Raymond. What? I don't understand that. And where he fights giant tennis shoes and vacuum cleaners, and then just about when he's about to get the girl, the beam wears off and he winds up going back home. But they never talked about what he did the other 27 days of the month. And, like he'd tell people, he'd put on a spacesuit and go stand in the middle of the crowd somewhere. If you were an archaeologist, a professor at a university, they'd probably throw you in a loony bin, right? And I always thought, gee, that would be great to explore what the rest of his life's like, when he's not off fighting giant tennis shoes and vacuum cleaners. So the humorist in me always wanted to kind of do that, and never got to it. Sir.
There we are, that is all the time we have for with Bob.
Oh, well, here, I have a theory. Hold on one second.
Okay.
That's my next theory. They lost my luggage here, by the way. That's why when you come out there and you see me, you can hear crickets at my table. All my artwork, all my prints, everything is still BA, sitting with BA somewhere. So, well, in Belgium I had no clothes, yeah. Yes, I did press conferences naked. It was embarrassing.
Very free.
Yes. Yeah, I did. It was tough because apparently the Belgian people were a lot smaller than me. I couldn't find anything my size. I found a shirt that hit me about right here, so I just zipped my jacket up. But yeah, but this time all my artwork and my prints are missing. So we're still trying to locate that. But it's hopefully it'll show up by tomorrow because it's my birthday. So for my birthday, I would love to have my luggage back. I read actually for you. Thank you. I have nothing to take it home in. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a massive round of applause. Bob Layton.